Welcome to another of the special bonus episodes we're doing this week on the Buckeyes TomOrrow Morning feed. Going to be letting you hear directly from the Buckeyes. You heard from a bunch of Wolverines already this week. Now you're going to be hearing from Ryan Day, Ohio State's head coach. He had a lot to say earlier in the week as we talked to him previewing this Ohio State-Michigan game. Let's start with just the importance of composure. There's going to be a lot of emotion in that stadium on both sides of the field. There always is for the Ohio State-Michigan game. This year, all those knobs are turned up to 11 or beyond. So how much have they talked to the guys on the team about keeping your composure, not responding when someone else maybe takes a swing at you or shoves you, and maybe even being the second guy in who always is the one who gets caught?
Yeah, I think that's important. You have to play with emotion. You can't let emotion play with you. I think that's important. You have to have your emotions in check, which isn't easy in a game like this because, as we all know, how the magnitude of it all. But it's something that we identified in the offseason. So and we'll talk about this week.
College football teams will change a bunch over the course of the season. Just think back to the Indiana game where the Buckeyes opened the season and could barely get out of their own way in a 23-3 win over the Hoosiers. The offense has evolved quite a bit over the course of the season, and that's especially true on the ground. That run game has really changed for the better over the course of the year. So when you're figuring out what you want to do, how things work best for your offense, how do you figure out what works best for you?
Yeah, going to keep getting tested, but I feel like we've made some progress in different areas. I think certainly Trey coming back has made a big impact on that, but everybody is involved with it. And it's balance. But I think, identifying each week what's worked for us and what hasn't, and fixing those things just over time, getting better. And I think the infusion of Trey has certainly helped.
Kyle McCord and J.J. McCarthy, the two starting quarterbacks for Saturday's game, were both members of the 2021 recruiting class, and they both wanted to go to Ohio State. Ultimately, Ryan Day decided that Kyle McCord was a better fit for what the Buckeyes wanted, and J.J. McCarthy decided to go to Michigan. That has worked out just fine for him since he left. So with this being a little bit of a battle, a little bit of a head-to-head thing where this was a major storyline while those guys were being recruited, how do you keep Kyle McCord from trying to do too much to, prove Ryan Day right that he chose the right guy when the guys face off on Saturday?
Well, I think there's a lot going on here, and I think what we've done all season is in preparation for this game, the way that we've prepared, the way we've evaluated each game, the way we've talked about each game, our focus in the offseason, our focus in the preseason, and our focus during the season. So, like I told the guys on Sunday, we've been preparing for this moment all year. And so now we just need to continue on the routines that we've been on and, be the best team we've been all season, but at the same time focusing on those things. And it'll be the same for Kyle.
Ryan Day has been a part of the Ohio State coaching staff dating back to 2017, but he did not grow up an Ohio State fan. He grew up in New Hampshire and then lived a bunch of different places around the country, but never lived in Ohio or Michigan until 2017 when he took a job as an assistant under Urban Meyer. So when did Day finally really start to grasp the magnitude of this game and what it means to the states of Ohio and Michigan for the first time?
I think every year you just learn more and more. I guess this will be my sixth time in the game. So, you learn quickly when you're here, but each year, you learn more, and it has more of a significant impact on you as a person. And I think all of our guys, when they come here, whether it's a coach or a player, they're here for one reason, to win that game. And so, and I guess, every year that you're here, you learn about that more and more. But my youngest daughter doesn't know any other place other than Ohio. So, this world means the world to me and my family.
Mentioned earlier the potential quarterback duel between McCarthy and McCord, which is happening on the field on Saturday, but happened on the recruiting grounds back before the 2021 class signed. So when Ryan Day is recruiting quarterbacks, are there certain things that he's looking for that separate guys?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not just one thing, but there's a lot that you look at. Leadership, competitiveness, toughness. There's just so many things that you do And the difficult thing now is starting recruiting at younger ages. And certain guys are being evaluated as freshmen and sophomores, and then you continue to evaluate. Then you have guys like Lincoln, who we evaluated his senior year. So, and then you try to compare the best you can. But there's not one thing other than competitiveness is one that for sure is high on the list.
Ryan Day has obviously spent a bunch of time with J.J. McCarthy and his family over the years as that recruiting process sort of shook out. So what does Dave remember about recruiting J.J. McCarthy, and what led him to finally decide on Kyle McCord ultimately?
There's all kinds of things that lead into recruiting. And no, I mean, J.J. was always great. He was very respectful. He was a very competitive player, and got a lot of respect for him as a player and as a person. And during the recruiting cycle, you spend time with different people and different folks, and you learn about people. And again, all my interactions with he and his family were very classy.
You heard Day talking earlier about playing with emotion and not letting emotion play with you. This is undoubtedly going to be a pretty emotional game for Ryan Day as well. You are undoubtedly familiar with some of the things going on around the Michigan program and how they may have impacted previous Ohio State Michigan games. So, is this not a kind of a personal game for Ryan Day this year? And if it is, how do you try and set that aside?
Yeah, because I think, not that it's easy, but the only thing that matters is this game, is this team, is preparing. The rest of it doesn't matter. So that's what we have to do. We have got to stay disciplined enough to focus on that. And it goes back to the conversation about emotion, letting, emotion of the game and everything get in the way. We can't do that. And every year you learn more and more about this game and the preparation for it. So we're not going to let any of that stuff get in our way in terms of distractions. We're just going to focus on this team, this season, and preparing the best we possibly can.
We've been around Ryan Day at press conferences and just in the facility often enough over the years. We kind of have a sense for when he's in a good mood, when he's in a bad mood, when he's maybe a little more uptight, when he's a little loose and relaxed. Going into the game last year, there were people who thought maybe Ryan Day was a little more uptight before that Michigan game. And then before the Peach Bowl against Georgia, it might have been a little loose. So does Ryan Day feel like that might have been the case last year?
I think every year you evaluate what's going on and you try to do the best you can to make sure that you fix the things that don't go well and you enhance the things that do go well. I think there was a lot of things that went on, in the game looking back on it. And so you learn from it and you move on.
This will be Kyle McCord's first start at Michigan Stadium and in the Ohio State Michigan game, but it will not be the first time he makes a start in a historic, storied venue with a whole lot of very angry, very loud opposing fans filling it. He did play on the road at Notre Dame in a tight, close game, picked up a win in a really big environment. So how much does that, having that in his, under his belt and in his memory, how much does that help for what he's going to face on Saturday in Ann Arbor? And you're going to hear a quick follow-up here as well.
Yeah, anytime you have experience in a game like this, it makes a big difference, and it's something to go back upon, which is good. He's a very smart player who, understands situations, and when you've been in those type of situations before, you have something to grab onto and refer to, and you have a reference point. And I think that all helps in preparation.
Did you learn something or take away something from that, from seeing him go through that?
Yeah, just watching him play and doing it and learning about the things that he excelled at.
The Ohio State-Michigan rivalry has always been built on respect. Woody and Bo, they may not have liked each other one Saturday in November, but they were close friends. They were former colleagues. They got along just fine. And after Woody was out of his job, Bo did some off-field events with Woody. They were really, truly good friends. So in a rivalry that has historically been built on respect, that might not really be the case anymore if you listen to the coaches talk about each other or not talk about each other this week. Does that make Ryan Day sad? Does it make him energized? What does he think about that?
I think, I was taught that, the way you respect the rivalry is to work it every day. And whether it's in the, the weight room, whether it's, game planning, talking to your players, periods in practice in the, during the spring, periods in practice in the preseason, and that's it. And so, we respect the rivalry and certainly excited to play here on Saturday.
This Ohio State team is undefeated. They're 11-0. They've won every game at home, but they've also won every game on the road, and they've been challenged on the road and overcome that. And Day has called this team road warriors in the past. So is this a team that plays well away from home? And if it is, what does that mean for Saturday?
Well, yeah, and we have the schedule right over there, and I point to all those white blocks right there. The teams we knew we had to go on the road this season more than we had in the past, and certainly knew we had to go on the road for this one. So, like I said before, it's all in preparation for the last game of the year, and so it's been great to get tested, to get battle tested. So again, you talk about reference point. Our team does have a reference point. It'll be loud. It'll be hostile, great environment. But we've been in those before, and so again, a reference point going into the game is important.
There are a million different things that could decide this game between the Buckeyes and Wolverines. Could be turnovers, could be special teams, could be red zone execution. The Buckeyes have not always been great in the red zone on offense. They know they're going to need 7s and not 3s on Saturday. So what does it take to execute in the red zone against a defense as good as Michigan has been down there?
Well, first off, they haven't had very many snaps down there. So, there's not a ton to go off of. But you got to, every yard is worth 2 or 3 down there. And, you got to do a great job execution. The field gets smaller. We call it the 12th defenders at end line. And so you just got to operate in a smaller area. And so you got to be efficient. But that'll be another situation that'll be huge in the game. Those 4-point plays where you're the kicking field goals or scoring touchdowns on both sides of the ball.
This was an interesting follow-up to one of the questions mentioned earlier. How about how the rivalry has always been heated, but there's always been a respect between the players. This was Rob Aller asked Ryan Day real directly, do you have respect for Jim Harbaugh and his staff?
Yeah, I think, with everything going on and the things, that are out there, we just kind of stayed away from all the distractions we have, and just focused on our team. And I think our guys have done a good job of it. I think, when you talk to our guys, I have talked to them a couple of times about, what's gone on this season and going into the game. But, they're focused on this game. They're focused on this season. They're focused on their preparation. And we're just going to continue on that.
The Buckeyes and Wolverines can practice as much as they want. They can watch as much film as they want. And it sounds like they are practicing and watching a ton of film. So that's great. That's all well and good. You work the game plan all week long. But how important is it when all the work is done for the guys to go out there and just play fast and loose and not be overthinking and playing tight?
Yeah, that's it. It's our job to give them a good plan, let them go play. And then they can go out there and, compete at the highest level. And that's what you want as a coach. So, we got to have a good scheme. We got to do a great job with that. But at the same time, we got to allow them to go play. And that's what it comes down to in big games. And it's going to be 4 quarters. It's going to be a battle. And, the good news is, again, this is something we've been preparing for all year.
You have seen Ryan Day really let loose on the sideline a few times over the course of the year. You saw it during the postgame interview against Notre Dame. You've seen it on the sideline from time to time. How does Day sort of pick and choose his spots to let loose a little bit, or does does his brain just sort of make those decisions for him?
Yeah, I think you have to know your team. You have to know what's going on each week. Sometimes it just pours out. Other times, you feel like you got to give your guys a little something. But you also want consistency. But the guys in the locker room know how competitive we all are and how competitive I am. But like you said, you have to keep your emotions in check, and that's going to be starting from the head down. It's got to start from me. We have to go in there and execute at a high level and handle the environment.
If you watched the Michigan State-Michigan game last year, you are aware of the issues involving Michigan Stadium's tunnel. There's only one tunnel there. Both teams share the same tunnel as they go to take the field, and it is a pretty narrow one in spots. You're going to have people passing in pretty close quarters, if not passing, basically brushing past each other at spots in that tunnel. So how do you handle things to avoid issues and not have fights, pushing, punching, whatever in that tunnel before the game, at halftime, or after the game?
Yeah, we've had conversations already. They've been, folks have been talking about it here for a couple of weeks and put some good plans together, again, to make sure that we can focus on what matters, and that's getting on the field and playing football.
This will be the fourth Ohio State-Michigan game that Ryan Day has coached. Of course, there was not one in 2020. He won in 2019. He lost in 2021. He lost in 2022. Now 2023 will be his fourth game as Ohio State's head coach facing the Wolverines. Has he spent any time reflecting on how the Buckeyes have prepared for those previous games and if there are lessons to be learned from that?
Yeah, I think you look at that in the offseason for sure. You just dive in. You try to identify, okay, let's talk about everything. Let's talk about the scheme. Let's talk about the preparation. Let's talk about, leading up to the game. Let's talk about all of those things. And then you try to identify, so what exactly happened in the game. And then you learn from there and you grow from there and you make adjustments from there. And then that's kind of how you shape your season. That's how you shape your off season. And then you learn about your team. You learn about, there's a lot of information that comes in during the season and you grow from there and you build from there. All in preparation for this one. So, you certainly look at all those things. But at this point, a lot of those decisions have been made.
This is kind of the last year of college football as we know it. Lots of conference realignment, the expansion from 4 teams to 12 teams for the college football playoff. There's going to be a lot changing next year. So is it possible that the game might not have quite as much on the line this time next year?
Yeah, I don't know if that'll be the case. I'm sure there'll always be just as much on the line when these two teams play. And certainly it'll be different, but I don't think it'll change anything just on the format. It's always going to be this way. And the format certainly will change next year, but I don't think the rivalry will ever be anything less than it is right now.
The Ohio State-Michigan game is pretty much always won in the trenches. If you're old enough, you can probably remember Woody and Bo talking about that. If you're a little younger, you might remember Earl Bruce and Bo talking about that, or John Cooper and Lloyd Carr talking about that, or Jim Tressel and also Lloyd Carr talking about that, Urban Meyer, Brady Hoke. Year after year, coaches change, decades change. The game is won in the trenches. It is the ultimate test of the offensive line. So what is Ryan Day's level of confidence in the Buckeyes offensive line and their growth and progression throughout the year?
Yeah, you're seeing improvement every week. You're seeing a group that works together. You're seeing progressions, individually and as a unit. And so, they're going to do a great job today of getting out there on a Tuesday practice and working at their craft and preparing to go play at a high level and then go compete for 4 quarters. But like you said, week in and week out, we come in, we talk about the progress in different areas. I think you've seen it in that area. So, I think their confidence is as high as it's been all season.
There is not much question that when Ohio State has fallen short in the last couple of years, it has generally been the defense that has been to blame. That was true in the 2020 season. That was true in the 2021 season. It was true in the 2022 season. This year, the defense has been holding up its end of the bargain and then some. The Buckeyes ranked among the top teams in the nation in virtually every major statistical category on defense. So how excited is Ryan Day to see this defense on the field after the last couple of years, to see what it looks like in this game, which is really the ultimate measuring stick for an Ohio State team?
Yeah, no, it's, again, same thing, just adjustments needed to be made, not just this year, the year before as well. And so, here we are, got to go put it on the field. But again, I think you're going to see a confident group going out there.
There's been a lot of growth and development from this Ohio State team over the course of the season. Talked about the offensive line earlier, talked about the defense earlier. What about Kyle McCord? What has his development been over the course of the year? What has Ryan Day seen from him and his growth, even going back to the start of the quarterback competition at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, no, you see him executing plays. You see it in practice, and then it carries over to the field, and that's what you want. Now, ultimately, we got to take care of the football, win a game. That's the bottom line here. And, the good news is he's got a great group around him, and he's been in these environments before. So a lot of things in his favor going into the game, but now he's got to go put it on the field.
Ohio State and Michigan both enter this game at 11-0, and neither of them have played a whole lot of close games. The Buckeyes have certainly had a couple that were interesting into the fourth quarter, Notre Dame obviously being the one that was truly interesting. Michigan has really only had a little kind of Penn State into the second half, and Maryland last week was kind of close into the second half, but neither team has had a lot of those games this year. So how much of this weekend's game is going to be figuring out who you truly are in a close game?
I feel like we've been tested at different times this year, with the growth of the quarterback. We've been in, games at halftime where we were winning. We've been In games where, it's been close, we've been games where we've been losing. So we've had to win games in the fourth quarter. We've had games where we've, pulled away from teams. So, I think we've learned a lot about this team. I think they're, again, a more mature and veteran team than in the past. Many of these guys have played in this game before. So, I feel like I have a good feel for who we are and who our identity is.
Coaches always talk about wanting to play their best football in November. November is for contenders, as Jim Tressel used to say when he was the head coach of the Buckeyes. So what do you actually have to do to get that to happen, to be playing your best football when you really can? And is that up to the coaches? Is that up to the players? How does that actually happen?
Well, I think you look at the routine. I think that's something you grab onto in big weeks. That's why you set routines. That's why we talk to our team about routines. And that's, in big games, that's what you grab onto to make sure you stay on that routine, and it's a productive process to make sure you're covering everything you need to cover in terms of preparation. And again, we've had, great opportunities to take a look and see how things have gone down, why they've gone down, and regroup every season and try to identify the things that we got to improve at. So, this has been a great group to build with. They're a great group to coach, and we're going to have another great week of practice right now, and I can't wait to see these guys play on Saturday.
For almost 2 decades, it was taken as just about a given that an Ohio State senior would leave Ohio State with at least 4 and maybe 5 pairs of gold pants for beating Michigan. Well, only a handful of guys on this year's team have any gold pants at all. The Buckeyes have not beaten Michigan since 2019. 2020, of course, there was no game, and then 2 losses in a row. So now, how different is the feel around this program this week, with very few guys having beaten the Wolverines before, as compared to before, where it was taken as almost a guarantee that Ohio State was going to beat Michigan?
I don't know. I think it's a good question, but we take every year as it is and go from there. But there's guys with scars, and I'm one of them, and so it just drives you every day to work harder and to make sure you do everything you possibly can to win the game.
There is a lot on the line this weekend. I'm sure we don't need to go through all of it, but the Big Ten East title, the chance to play in the Big Ten championship game, a chance to remain in the top 4 of the college football playoff rankings, a chance to continue fighting for the national championship, and all the off-field stuff, the general bragging rights, all of that and much, much more. There is so much on the line. But is it also kind of freeing for Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day to know this is a just win, baby game. All you got to do is win, and that's it. No style points necessary.
Yeah, we say in those matchup games, it could come down to one play, and we have to play those games that way. We've been in a couple of those this season. We talk about those games. Not that any game is any different, but it could come down to one play, and you got to be on your game, and you got to win the situations.
Well, we will be back with another episode of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning coming up tomorrow. And of course, we'll have more of these bonus episodes sort of sprinkled throughout the day. Let you hear from some of the Buckeyes, get a little more detail on this, because we know you're traveling, a lot of time in the car, a lot of time sitting around with relatives and all that fun stuff. And of course, you're kind of watching the clock as well, waiting for the game to show up. Start at noon on Saturday, televised on Fox. We will be there. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Have a bunch of coverage from up in Michigan starting on Friday. Then, of course, your usual post-game coverage. We're going to try and do a little bit of pre-game stuff for you as well. Should be a lot of coverage, plenty of stuff to talk about all week long at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle and, of course, at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.